What else do you have to do? Die and pay taxes? Boring! The Spiritual Shitshow Podcast with Suzanne Sole, episode number 2. Hey, motherfuckers. Welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow Podcast, where we get into the complete shit show the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Sole, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the amazing shit I've learned along my journey that has helped me and that I hope helps you too. All right, let's get into this shiz. Listen, don't freak out. But right now, as we speak, you are on a spiritual journey. I said don't freak out! Okay, so right about now, some of you might be thinking, who the fuck is this lady and what the fuck is she talking about? And I would say, oh, okay. So if this is your first time listening to this shit show, let me tell you a little bit about myself. As I said in my intro, my name is Suzanne Sole, and I am a comedian and spiritual student / spiritual seeker / supermodel. JK, I would have been a supermodel if it wasn't for my love of sandwiches. My hobbies are buying vegetables at the grocery store and letting them rot in my refrigerator. I also enjoy doing nothing, and that's mostly it. So I hope that answers your first question. As far as what the fuck I'm talking about, in this episode, we're talking about the spiritual journey. I touched on the subject in Ep 1, and now, like a second date, we're going to try to get into it. Okay, so here's the thing. If you are a person, you are on the spiritual journey, whether you know it or not. Just like when you drink decaf that's been presented as regular coffee. Okay, so you might be saying, hold on. What the fuck is a spiritual journey? And then I would say, oh, okay, let me break it down. So in books, characters leave their ordinary worlds and go out on adventures, undertaking mental or physical challenges often daunting as part of their enlightenment, integral to their character development. And the word spiritual means relating to or affecting the spirit or soul. So if you do the math, carry the one. A spiritual journey is a transformative journey of self-discovery and spiritual enlightenment that can be fraught with difficult and painful challenges, which are a part of your journey and your story. And your journey is totes personal because it is informed by the personal experiences and insights that you will have. Okay, now you might be saying, a journey to where? Where the fuck is she going? And then I would say, oh, okay. So the huge ultimate destination of a spiritual journey could be a spiritual awakening. And then your response might be something like, well, what the fuck is a spiritual awakening? I'm awake right now. Is there more awake than just regular awake? And to that I would say, why, yes, there is. But let me disclaimer that shit by telling you there are many explanations of the term spiritual awakening. And I am not claiming to have the end-all be-all answer to this question, but I did look it up on the internet. The internet says that a spiritual awakening is the experience of waking up to the realization and even the experience of yourself as a spiritual being and your connection to everything. And maybe it's just me, but that sounds pretty freaking cool. So, the spiritual journey is meant to help us let go of the mental and emotional chains that bind us, open our hearts and minds, and wake us up to the magnificent spiritual beings of that we are. And how this occurs is through the dismantling of the ego structures we have in place, which are blocking us from fully self-realizing and from our very own love and spiritual truth within. I know. What the fuck are ego structures? Okay. So ego structures are the parameters or perimeters, aka beliefs of what we see as acceptable and possible for us. Examples of the parameters we might have in place that dictate what is unacceptable for us could be, it's not okay for me to be my authentic self if my authentic self is very different from the people around me. It is not okay for me to love who I love. It's not okay for me to practice the type of spirituality I want to practice. It's not okay for me to have different beliefs or want different things. Examples of ego structures we might have in place that tell us what isn't possible for us might be, I could never be a writer, dancer, doctor, snake charmer. I'm not good enough to start my own business, graduate college, sail the 7 seas, become a puppeteer, open a cheese factory. I don't deserve to be loved, to be understood, to get my needs met, to get my shoulders rubbed every 15 minutes for the rest of my life. JK. I am powerless, I am unworthy, and on and on. And they told two friends, and they told two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. Okay, so hear me out. Most of our ego structures are made of old beliefs that might have started hundreds and hundreds of years ago by our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents and our hand-me-down paradigms, which P.S. is a great name for a band. So they ain't even ours, and they may not even be relative to our present-day life. But even so, even hand-me-down parameters can still be scary to let go of, even when they're causing us a lot of suffering when that's all we've known, and especially if most of the people around us live within those same parameters. We may fear that if we forge our own path, we might be ostracized by the people we love and or are familiar to us, aka all we know. But we never really know how people are truly going to react to us when we take the leap of faith to be more ourselves and focus on our inner life until we do it. It's your personal journey. When we let ourselves tune in to our spiritual journey, like the characters in books, we will feel the experience that we are leaving our ordinary world, aka what we've always known as reality, and open ourselves to our soul's adventure, which will transform the perception and experience we have of ourselves and the world. Now, that might sound a little scary, but we can look to the many people who have undergone their soul's adventure and made it through. And that can be a lighthouse for us when we feel lost on our journey. Author Joseph Campbell's poem, The Hero's Adventure, is one of my absolute faveskis poems about how we can look to those who've gone before us to give us courage to embark on our journey and how it will change us. Let me lay it on you. We have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path, and where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. And where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. And where we had thought to travel outward, we shall come to the center of our own existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. The poem is meant to let us know that even though we are on our own unique path, in the big picture, we're not alone. Y'all, we are the main character and the hero of our own lives. And I know that's totes cheesy and cliche, but it's true, motherfuckers. Campbell says that there are different ways we may start our journey. One where we set out intentionally, maybe because we feel called to question and understand our human experience or want to explore beyond what we know. And one into which we are thrown and pitched, aka we didn't intend it. But our soul did. You see, our soul is prefabbed for freedom. And when she wants to get free, oh, the collaborating with life she will do. I only do it because I love. The part of Suzanne Sole will be played by Suzanne Sole. Being thrown and pitched unintentionally into our spiritual journey usually involves what is referred to as the wake-up call. Bring. Hello? Hello? Is this Suzanne? Yeah, it is. This is your wake-up call. Wake-up call? It's 3 p.m. I'm already awake. We think not. When the wake-up call comes, it's usually triggered from a life-altering event that causes us to experience the loss of any control we thought we had on life. And I think that might actually be the point. Events like an incredibly painful and shocking breakup, the sudden loss of a job, the death of someone we love, illness, a near-death experience. I mean, what are we waiting for? Let's request a wake-up call right now! As an aside, I do a comedy cabaret about the wake-up call and all the stages of a spiritual awakening in a little show I wrote aptly named The Spiritual Awakening Comedy Cabaret. You can learn more about it on my comedy website, SuzanneSole.com. Any hoodles. Either way, our best bet is to do our best to trust that whatever is occurring in our life is for our journey and for our benefit and growth, even if we don't fully yet understand why. And even if it sucks, and to surrender to the journey. Spiritual teacher Michael Singer says, if experience is the best teacher, there's nothing that comes close to the experience of life. Surrendering to our journey and letting life be our teacher is obviously not always easy to do, especially for those of us who are type A's and more comfortable in white knuckle mode. Now, I don't mean surrender like defeated, like Charlie Brown experienced mid-plot in every storyline of the Peanuts, although sometimes it can be like that. But surrender like allowing, letting go of control, being in the flow of life. I liken this phenomenon of surrender to a trip I took to New Orleans. I had a laundry list of things that I wanted to do in New Orleans. I had an agenda, I had a task list, and I was going to do those things. And for the first part of my trip, it felt like I was fighting New Orleans to see New Orleans the way I wanted to see New Orleans. And after a few days, I was feeling really frustrated. And while I was listening to this kick-ass band on Frenchman Street, an angel in the body of a New Orleanian started chatting with me. And as I shared my frustrations about my trip thus far, she turned to me and said, "Honey, New Orleans will show you New Orleans. Don't try to fight it, girl." So once I surrendered and let New Orleans show me New Orleans, I had a kick-ass time. Y'all, our soul is powerful. It is more knowing and more expansive than our ego. So we can try to fight against our journey, but as long as we do that, we may find ourselves feeling pretty frustrated and our lives feeling pretty stagnant. Buddhist nun and teacher Pema Chodron says, "No matter what comes along, we are always standing in the middle of sacred space, and everything that comes into that circle and exists there has come to teach us what we need to know. Our life's work is to wake up, to let the things that enter the circle wake you up rather than put you to sleep." Now, you may ask, why the fuck do I need to take a spiritual journey? And then I would say, darling, remember, you're already on a spiritual journey right now. Why, you're soaking in it. But the purpose of a spiritual journey is to heal and become free, BTW. Like a lot of people, I felt the huge when I started my journey, lost, afraid, angry, and alone in the world. I have experienced trauma and abuse, and I am a recovering alcoholic. I think they call that a triple threat in showbiz. And thusly, I kept searching out there for partners, accolades, and status to make me feel better. And did it, this just in. That shit is temporary. Back to you, Bob. Because if you're only relying on outer circumstances to bring you a sense of fulfillment and well-being without also living in the truth that the true essence of your being is magnifiques as is skis, you may find yourself feeling like a pinball in a pinball machine and getting knocked around a lot by those outer circumstances. And you may be entitled to compensation. Listen, no shade, babe. When we first start out on our spiritual and healing journey, our aim may not be so direct, but you gotta start somewhere. Because even when I thought I was getting it all wrong, I was still already on the journey to one day be making this crazy little podcast. Here's the deal. If you allow it, the spiritual journey will open you up to a next level experience of life. Okay, it may take 95 years, but what else do you have to do? Die and pay taxes? Boring! And the journey is a journey in itself. And the most important thing to remember is to just keep going. Because just like when you decide to clean out the hall closet, when you start, you'll probably be totes enthused like, oh, I cannot fucking wait to see this new, fresh, delicious version of this fucking closet. And then about halfway through, when all the shit from the closet is lying on the floor and you're looking through old photos wearing the giant blue wig you wore on Halloween 15 years ago when you dressed as Marge Simpson, you might feel overwhelmed and not sure if you have what it takes to finish the task. Listen, I can totes relate because sometimes, full transparency, the spiritual and healing journey is a real shit show. But also, full transparency, sometimes it's wonderful and thrilling. But also, full transparency, it's totally worth it, y'all. Trust. Why, I'm on the spiritual journey right now, and my experience of life just keeps getting more and more wonderful. But don't get it twisted. This Shangri-La is still mixed with the usual bullshit of life, of course. Oh, and one small caveat about the healing and spiritual journey. It doesn't end until you do. Symbol crush! Now, although I believe that at our spiritual core we are all one, our own human experience is all most of us may ever truly know on planet Earth, as far as we know. I cannot fully know your experience of life, and you cannot fully know mine, and thusly, each of our spiritual journeys is unique and personal to us. So while your spiritual journey might involve meditating in an ashram for 10 years and raising the vibration of the planet, someone else's journey might involve being an addict who eventually recovers and becomes an incredible drug counselor who helps thousands of people and also kicks ass at karaoke every Thursday night. I mention this because sometimes we can pick our own journey apart, saying, I shouldn't be doing this, or this is wrong, or this shouldn't be happening, when it's all exactly as it should be for each person. So we just got to try not to judge it. We don't know why we are where we are in our lives sometimes, but if we close our eyes and our fists and decide, fuck this, it's all fucked, and there's nothing to be done, and leave it there, because we all have feelings, and frustration is a common first reaction to frustrating situations. But if we stay there and we don't open our hearts and minds to look deeper, we won't see that it's a starting place of a spiritual journey and not the end of a shitty story. But don't feel bad. I've done that 10 trillion times. As spiritual teacher Byron Katie says, how do you know something is supposed to be happening? Because it's happening. Byron Katie is an amazing teacher who wrote a book called The Work. Highly recommended, 10 out of 10. She also says, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Waka waka. Teachings like that can help us trust life when we're like, I'm not supposed to be working at this uncool job, or having to deal with this jackass, or married to this ding-dong, or dealing with this crap. And this shitty shit is evidence that I suck and life sucks and there's nothing I can do about it. And I get it. Life can be very fucking frustrating and challenging. But give yourself and life a break, because what is occurring is all part of the process. Now, am I saying don't show up for yourself so you can grow and work toward creating a life that feels meaningful to you? No, I am not saying that. But when we only judge our situation on the surface and don't look deeper into it, we won't allow ourselves to see that although we may not understand why, what's happening is an important part of the path of our evolution, and we will miss out on the curriculum. And it becomes difficult to carry on with our spiritual journey. It's like the old Irish joke about a city boy from Dublin who comes out to the country for his cousin's wedding. He can't remember the way, so he stops to ask a farmer for directions. The farmer looks at him, scratches his head, thinks for a moment, and says, "You know, if I were you, I wouldn't start from here." Ram Dass said, our incarnation isn't an error, and where we are is exactly where we are supposed to be in this moment. We can't push away our humanity, as freedom comes through form, not in spite of it. I also mention this because we can never truly know all the aspects of another person's spiritual journey and spiritual story. So recognizing that each of us has our own spiritual path only between ourselves and the divine absolves us from feeling the responsibility to feel we have to judge another person's life. It ain't easy though, because let me tell you something. It is so satisfying for that one tiny millisecond when we blame other people. We are so tricksy, getting away with our own bullshit by pointing the finger at someone else. I cannot tell you how many times I shook my head or rolled my eyes at someone and said, "Ugh, what a hot mess," while I was in debt collection with a fucked up haircut. But facing ourselves and putting our attention on how we are reacting to life and what we are believing will transform us and bring us to fulfillment and happiness way more than worrying about what other motherfuckers are up to. I'll say it loud for the cheap seats. We cannot control any other motherfuckers. We can only control the motherfucker we see in the motherfucking mirror. And as we allow life to teach us and help us to let go of old shit that doesn't work, we can explore spiritual teachings and implement spiritual practices that help us see life with fresh eyes. lean toward a lifestyle that's wholesome and self-loving and positive, practice self-care, and work towards self-compassion and acceptance. So, the spiritual journey is a combination of shedding ideas about who we are not and learning the truth about who we are. So it's kind of like being run across a cheese grater while being massaged with honey butter. But we can temper this masochistic experience with spiritual practices like meditation, prayer, and of course, crying in bowls of ice cream. JK. Philosopher and spiritual teacher Krishnamurti said, "The spiritual journey toward enlightenment is not about arrival, but about the path we take to get there." Disclaimer, big changes in yourself and in your life may not happen overnight, and the process can be messy as fuck, and the journey can be difficult, but life can be difficult. But I just want to remind you to keep going and keep showing up for yourself. And when you fuck up, because you will fuck up 900 million zillion times, because we all do, just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And if you keep going, you will make beautiful changes in your life, and you will grow in beautiful ways, and you will begin to make more and more conscious contact with the spiritual essence of your being and your connection to God that you will be able to find comfort in times of trouble, because I do. Now, I am not here to tell you what your spiritual path should look like, what the details of your spiritual practice should be, or even what your understanding of spirituality should look like. That is not my business. That is your business. But I am here to say that I believe that if we allow our spiritual journey and our spiritual path to be a part of our perspective of life, regardless of what anyone around us says, if we take the time to get in touch with the spiritual amazeballs truth of who we are, life will become more and more soups magical. And doesn't that sound special? And I want to tell you that it is worth it, motherfucker. It truly is. Because when we heal and spiritually grow, our life becomes more and more delish. And we feel more and more free to be our authentic selves and love more freely and deeply. And that's all right, mama. That's all right with me. BTW, if you like this cute-ass shirt that I'm wearing that says, "I see the divine in y'all," you can get one for yourself by going on the Personally Spiritual brand website, personallyspiritual.com. Anyway, motherfuckers, I love you so fucking much. This has been the Spiritual Shitshow podcast. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Roll it, darling. Come on, just fucking roll it, will you?